It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Very good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are live with Expresso. Now, as we enter summer, apart from the long days spent on the beach and all the Christmas presents we have to buy and hopefully receive and unwrap, we're also slap bang in the middle of wedding season. For our weekly finance segment, we're joined again by financial advisor from Galileo Capital, Warren Ingram, who I hope isn't going to make all the newly engaged couples out there rethink their decision. We certainly support love, we support marriage, but we want you to do it responsibly. Warren, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I've watched so many of my friends. I'm like the resident wedding MC. I've MC'd about 10 weddings, and everyone is a different journey, but where you do see a similarity is the finance behind it. In a very broad sense, what do we need to be considering when approaching a wedding financially?
So it's already a stressful thing, isn't it? I mean, you've got to manage the family, you've got to manage potentially the rest of your life together. And I think, like everything, you've got to start with a proper foundation. So before you get married, you need to discuss the money stuff, and you need to set a budget for the wedding itself. But I think even before that is discuss money. So if it's you and me and we're getting married and you're a spender and I'm a saver, we need to figure it out. We need to say, how are we going to plan all this stuff together, and do we have some agreements? Because unfortunately, the other side of marriage is divorce, and about half of divorces happen because of money.
And we know South Africa's divorce rate is incredibly high. I think it becomes an emotional conversation, unfortunately, and you need to take that out of the equation and talk brass tacks. Excuse the pun, but in a country like South Africa, we've got so many different wedding models. How do the finances with different weddings kind of stack up? What are the different considerations there?
So, I mean, a couple of things. One is, as you say, I mean, we've got so many different cultures in our country, firstly, and the expectations for each culture is quite different. So you'll find that some weddings are going to be massive. And you need to invite a lot of people. There'll be the consideration, for example, for paying lobola. So there's a lot going on with the wedding. And I think a lot of it starts by having a conversation first as the couple. Yes, you have to be conscious of what your cultures are, and you have to be conscious of what your broader families expect and want from you. But at the same time, if you're going to be funding it, as a couple, you can't just incur a lifetime of debt right now for one event to make everybody else happy. I think you need to find a balance.
A happy balance. And I've seen guys drop over 100,000 on flowers and then pay it off for the next 5 to 10 years. We've got a cooling off period, if you will, with that engagement, and time to, yes, build up and enjoy the moment, that marriage, but also a time to come to grips with those financial issues. How long should you be kind of waiting? Can we attach a number to that?
I think you start as early as possible. So if you're already having a conversation about getting married, that's when you start having these conversations. And I think especially, and I know the guys don't like this, but especially to the woman in the setup, or the person who may not be the sole breadwinner, make sure you've got a proper anti-nuptial contract done by a lawyer, hopefully a lawyer that you both can get along with. So that's where you have the hard conversations to say, this is how we're going to do things, and what happens if the marriage ends? Who gets paid, and how does the money work? And it's a really uncomfortable thing to have, a conversation to have, but you have to have it.
And that's the reality of living a life with another person, is you've got to be able to tackle the good times and the bad times together. If you're already kind of separating with that initial discussion, it's going to make life a lot more challenging. Now, you mentioned lobola very briefly there. How does the modern South African man approach something like a lobola in your experience? Because, I mean, it's a costly affair.
And what's interesting is that the sort of younger generation that are getting married now, they're happy to respect the traditions, but it's not necessarily something that they deeply believe themselves. Always, I guess we are generalizing. But what you find is lobola's moved from cattle, for example. A lot of the times now, it'll be a financial amount. So it'll actually be a cash amount. It'll be done as a transfer. It'll be done as a proper negotiation that's done over time. And once it's agreed, then lobola gets paid. And I think for someone entering marriage, again, that will be a proper conversation to have. And I think you can't just disregard your traditions and the expectations of your society.
Well, I think there's an advantage there, because you're going to have elders, you're going to have people with authority weighing in on that conversation as well, and get some sagely advice. Just like we're getting right now, we don't want to de-romanticize weddings out there, but you've got to have those very real conversations. We're going to continue our financial chat around weddings in a moment.